Welcome and good afternoon. My name is Kamish Orr, and welcome back to something I like to call Stories from the Maelstrom, a recap of the day's games for this past week of real time. You would think with just 5 days left of the season, well, 6 at this point, 5 or 6, and one of the races, the National League race, pennant race, kind of wrapped up, there wouldn't be much excitement in the league, but that was not the case. We'll start in the American League, heading to New York as Boston was facing New York at the Polo Grounds. Boston desperately needing to keep winning to stay close to Detroit, the Detroit Rockets in the American League. They are 3.5 games back, I believe, with just 6 games left to play, so time's kind of running out for them. And Pedro Martinez has the shutout in this one against New York. Allows 8 hits, but he did strike out 8. Scattered those 8 hits and collected his first shutout of the season. He actually started the season in the bullpen. This season in question, he was injured most of the year, I believe, so he had a limited number of starts. So I tried to kind of limit his starts in the league as well. But he's been doing well now that he's been in the rotation for Boston. I don't know if it'll be enough, maybe too little too late to get them into the World Series for them to catch Detroit, but he does what he needed to do in this one, and Boston wins at 5-0. Walter Johnson allowed a couple of 2-run homers, one to Lou Gehrig and one to Charlie Gehringer. Other than that, he didn't pitch too bad. He only allowed 5 hits, but he did walk 9, so his control was a little spotty there. But Boston did what they needed to do, and this win, I believe, cut the Detroit lead to 3 games. Hold on to that thought as we head to St. Louis for the LA Dynamos taking on the St. Louis Wizards. St. Louis, of course, sealed their trip to the World Series yesterday by topping LA. LA has kind of been in free fall here. They lost 7 games straight heading into this one, and they lose this one as well. Don Sutton allowed 5 runs, solo homer to Willie McCovey there in the 2nd, but most of the damage was done in the 7th when Tony Gwynn cleared the bases with a double. Bases loaded double there. That's really what did the damage. LA, their only run was a Willie Mays solo homer against John Smoltz. Smoltz goes 7 innings, allowing just that 1 earned run, 4 hits. LA's offense has just been terrible during this span. This is their 8th straight loss. At one point, they were within 2 games of the Wizards. But those days feel like they were so long ago. So Sutton picks up the loss in this one. Smoltz gets the win. He's 4-1. And St. Louis now just trying to secure home field advantage for the World Series as they watch to see who in the American League they will be facing. Speaking of which, Detroit's in the league in the AL, and they were in Oakland to face the Oakland Jacks. And a very close game here. Frank Tanana for Detroit allowed just 2 earned runs in 8 innings. Those 2 runs came in the 2nd inning with back-to-back-to-back doubles by Bill Dickey, George Sisler, and George Kell. Those were the only runs the Jacks would score. Detroit picked up a run in the top of the 3rd on an RBI from Kenny Lofton. And that's kind of where things stood. Bob Feller kind of cruising until the 8th inning. Dick Allen hit a 2-run shot there in the 8th to give Detroit the 3-2 lead. And that was going to be enough. Tom Henke picks up his 14th save. He has tops in the American League in saves by kind of a wide margin. I think number 2 is Satchel Paige with 8, maybe. So Henke has a commanding lead in saves there in the American League. And so Detroit wins this one their 30th win of the season. They're 30-19, and that will re-extend their lead to 3.5 games. And again, time is kind of running out for Boston. If Detroit even plays 500 ball the rest of the way, they should take the AL pennant. So with all that excitement, Chicago and Houston, both teams out of it. The third and fourth place teams in the National League. You wouldn't think there'd be much interest or excitement there, and you would be wrong. As Randy Johnson strikes out 15 in this one. He improves to 5-2. What's more amazing for Johnson, the big unit, is that his prior 2 starts, he struck out 13 in each of those starts. So he's won his last 4, I believe. After starting 1-2 in his first 6 starts, he's been 4-0 in the last 4. Of course, it's not going to be enough to do anything for Houston, but pretty commanding lead there by Johnson. I think he'll have one more start this season. I believe he'll have one more start this season, so we'll have to see what he does there. But quite a performance. 13 strikeouts, and now 15 strikeouts in this one, which is, by the way, the season record, single game record for strikeouts. Meanwhile, Chicago, they played spoiler against LA, sweeping LA earlier in the prior series, but they've kind of fallen back down to earth here. Orel Hershiser falls to 1-4. Kent Tekulve, a bright spot on the Chicago docks, actually allowed an earned run in this one. Gary Carter had a solo shot off of him. He has not allowed very many earned runs this season. His ERA, 1.33. But needless to say, as I said, both these teams are kind of out of it. So, but still very cool to see Randy Johnson strike out 15 in this one. So where does that leave us in the standings? Well, Detroit has won 4 straight games, and they're 30-19. They have a 3.5 game lead over Boston. Boston will need to do everything in their power in these last 5 games. Boston actually has 6 games left because of a rain out against Oakland. So Boston will have 6 games left. Detroit will have 5 games left. St. Louis, meanwhile, fighting for home field advantage here. They have 3.5. They have a 3-game lead over Detroit for home field advantage. Again, with only 5 games left to play for both of those teams, unless St. Louis gets swept in the final series of the season, not very likely that Detroit will catch them. So they're kind of in the driver's seat in this one. These teams have one more game in this 4-game series, and then most of the teams will have a day off here. If we look at the schedule, we can see here tomorrow's games are the 4th game of the series for these teams, and then most of the teams will have a day off. Boston and Oakland, this was a makeup game. They'll play here on the 27th. So they'll have a 5-game series to finish the season. Boston will be facing Oakland in that 5-game series. Detroit will be at home against New York, the New York Swats. LA will be in Houston facing the Houston Hoots. And St. Louis will be facing the last place Chicago Docks to maintain their lead for home field advantage in the World Series. So that's what you have here. Let me know if you have any questions on any of that. Hopefully you enjoy that recap. We are getting down to it here. I will be playing the World Series games so that you can see those. I think it'll be very interesting to see who is victorious in that one, in that series. But that's where we will leave things for now. As always, head over to baseballmaelstrom.com if you want to keep up on the action, follow the action. And until next time, have a great evening.